I'd like to call this meeting of the Woodstock Village Board of Trustees to order on January 14th at 6:29 p.m. The first item on the agenda is additions and deletions to the posted agenda. Are there any or deletions to the posted agenda?
Yes. We add the appointment of a ethics liaison to the states on the agenda, please.
Okay, is that a vote?
Yes.
Okay, so let's put that after the village public trust funds thing.
Perfect.
Was that to say ethics coordinator, ethics
Liaison.
liaison? Fancy. Okay. Okay, any other additions or deletions?
Not from me.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is citizen comment. Are there any citizens comments on something other than what we have on our agenda this evening?
I don't see any online.
Okay. Moving on, we'll move to reports. The first one is the manager's report. Eric?
Yeah, so a few things. One, for those of you who have come to town hall the last week, you'll say we're painting. So we're starting downstairs and moving slowly upstairs to kind of give town hall some kind of a fresh welcome look. So we apologize for any inconvenience people have as they come in. But hopefully when we're all done, it'll look a little bit better, a little more welcoming for residents and guests when they come into town hall or the Pentangle. Second, just an update on the budget. The select board is meeting Thursday morning at 9:30 to vote on their FY26 budget. They met last night and came to a kind of a final agreement, but they wanted a few more days to review and have input from the residents as well. So that will happen Thursday morning, barring something strange happening. And then finally, I had a very interesting conversation with someone from the USDA today. They are actively looking to help communities with local beers being in the community. So there'll be a new system set up.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The animal, yes, not the alcohol drink. The USDA is not a.
I didn't know.
So there'll be a new system set up for people if you have encounters or if they come into your home, you can reach out through them. Then they'll have some more assistance. They'll come out on site visits. They'll work with you and your neighbors on finding solutions to it, potentially even loaning electric fences up as well to try to kind of calm the increase we have of them in our community. So we'll push out more information as the season comes and they stop hibernating. But he is also speaking at Billings Farm, I believe in February. So if people want more information, he'll be there as well.
Definitely promote that on our Facebook.
Yes, he's supposed to send me all the information from our meeting today, and I will.
Anything else on your end?
No, that's it.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, follow up, the courthouse payments to the village for parking.
I'll have to look to see. I believe we got one of them come in, but I don't. That was the one thing I did not check on today for parking, but I'll confirm that and email you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, it's now the 14th of January. Is there a plan in place to start STR enforcement? Letters to go out to those who are not in compliance?
We will be discussing.
That's on the agenda if you want to wait till. Yes, that's the third one down in discussion. So
good.
Yeah.
And discuss that.
Discuss it then. Thank you. That's it.
Trustees, any other questions? Nope. Next item on the agenda is the financial report.
Yeah, so I want to point out a few things on the financial report before we get into it. One is we made the transition over to our new paycheck software for payroll. So on this report, the last 4 payrolls are not in NEMRIC right now. So what you'd want to do to kind of get to an average on the last page is add about $130,000 onto the bottom line. That would make that total expenses from $636 to about $760,000. Just so you kind of have a rough estimate of where we're at financially. That puts us at about 50% of our expenses funded through the year, and we're about 53% of the way through the year. So we've had 14 out of our 26 payrolls and accounts payable up to last week.
Someone trying to get in.
So we're in a pretty good position overall. If you look at revenue, we're in a very good position revenue wise. Under police revenue, we're behind on our reconciliations, so some of that revenue is not there. Especially when you look at credit card parking, you're probably talking at least under $15,000-$20,000 will be added there. But the village is already at, where are we? Sorry. 84% of your revenue for the whole year, and we're just 53% of the way through the year. So far, it's a very good year revenue wise for the village. And we'll have the paycheck software will be updated by end of January. It's just for the next step in the process of implementing it. So that's why we're off.
Okay. Trustees, do you have any questions about the report? Jeffrey,
No, that was it. Thank you.
anything else on the financial report?
Oh, one thing I should add too, I forgot to mention, under interest income, it's about 7,500 out of a budget 10,000. We believe that's only through September. So probably look at almost doubling that to where we are right now.
Awesome. It's all good stuff. Thank you. Moving on to votes. The first is a presentation and vote from the Village Public Trust Funds for FY 2025 from Jill Davies from the investment.
I'm not hearing that, guys. I'm here as the trustee of Village Public Funds.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So we started this discussion in the fall. So I'm the trustee of public funds, and I and you make the decisions about where our public funds money goes. And so last years we've taken a percentage of each fund and allocated it somewhere. And we've closed down one fund, which was the sidewalks, where we gave a lump sum to the town to get the sidewalks up to standard. So tonight I want to talk to you about 3 funds. Do you all have this piece of paper which has got the numbers on?
Yes, ma'am.
So there's 3 funds: Frank McKenzie Fund, Orley Whitcomb, and the Old Fire Station. And I want to start talking to you about the biggest one, which is the Orley Whitcomb Fund. So I have a proposal, which is that we make a $5,000 a year contribution to the community care coordinator. And and so long as it's between 5 and 8% of the fund, we should be able to afford that. So I wanted to make sure that you knew what the community care coordinator is. Are you familiar with that position?
Yeah, you talked to us about it in the
Right. So I've got a few more details. Currently, the position is funded part-time by Mount Scottney, and funds are being raised from people like us to try to get that to a full-time position. The person who holds the position is Carla Camel, who used to hold it 3 years ago. And what she's really doing is dealing with the cases that are too complex for an organization like the Hub to do. So the Hub is staffed by volunteers. Carla is a professional social worker. This position used to be within the Otakuti Health Center, and then the hospital decided that they would only deal patients of theirs and not anybody else. So that meant that if you didn't have a primary care physician, you didn't have anyone to look after you, and you didn't have a social worker who you could go to when things get really complicated, like you're not getting your drug prescriptions, you haven't signed up properly for Medicaid, things have happened in an emergency, you're too mentally stressed to do these kind of things. And that's when we as a community need a professional social worker. It's very similar to the position of a community nurse that all towns used to have. and they make home visits. So you can't expect any volunteers like Otakuchi Health Foundation or the Hub. You can't expect those people to do home visits. It needs to come from a professional, and this is the person. So we're lucky enough that the hospital will support this person 50%. And then the request is, can we all give a little bit more? The position covers Woodstock and the surrounding towns. So what we would be doing by saying, so we have public funds that were originally designated for a community nurse, we can partially pay, and that partially pays for Woodstock residents. And if we could make a commitment of saying it's about 5,000 a year, that would really help to employ somebody rather than, well, it might be 5,000 this year, it might be 100 next year. That's not really very helpful to anybody. So that's my proposal for that one. Do you have any questions?
Well, remind us what we used that for last year or before.
You were going to ask that. I meant to look it up and I forgot.
I can't recall.
Does anybody have last year's report?
Not,
You mean this, the annual report?
Yes. June. Or I can find it.
You want to look at it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's it. I talked about it.
So in FY23, we used it for village tree work and East End Park expenses. Because the grant says that the money, this is the donor who said, I recommend that the sum be used for the employment of a district nurse or civic betterment of the village. And so at that time, we had a full-time person who was being paid for by Mount Scotland.
And now we do.
Now we don't.
Yeah.
So we have to do some, pay for it ourselves.
Yeah, we've used it for different sources at different years. My only thought, suggestion is, I love this use of the suspended. However, I don't like guaranteeing that it will be the same every year.
No, I don't think we should do that. I think we should say, what would you be comfortable saying?
I would say that we would review it every year.
And so another part of my proposal was that tonight we try and make decisions that we say, this is what we're going to do until something really changes, so that I don't have to come through this conversation with you every single year and we make the same decisions. Or maybe I do come and it's just a nod. Yes, same as last year. So if we intend to give them that amount of money, but don't guarantee it, because we can say it depends on the performance of the market, because the market might collapse and then we wouldn't have that amount of money to give them. So we can't guarantee.
Or something else changes in terms of the funding for this position. I would just think that I love spending the 5,000 on it. Probably again next year. But I think we should have the ability to change that if we'd like to. If circumstances change.
Well, how about we use that unless circumstances change
Yeah. I mean,
unexpectedly.
For the village as well as for them. Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay,
and I think keeping it at that 5 to 8%. So if the market does tank and it becomes
yes,
$2,000, like we're not on the hook for 5,000.
right. Okay,
Happening off the top, are the other towns contributing their?
yes, the other towns have been requested money
Okay.
as well. Okay, shall we vote on these one at a time, or shall we do them all together?
Let's do about one at a time so we can have them parsed out.
All right,
So the motion would be to disperse $5,000 from the Orly A. Whitcomb fund balance for the newly reinstated community care coordinator. Is there a second?
Second.
for this, well, how about amending it to for this year and future years unless circumstances change unexpectedly?
Or just unless circumstances change.
Yeah, unless circumstances change.
Okay.
Well, in future years. This year, we're committing. to it.
Yes, yeah, yes, second. With that
Do
change.
you want me to re-say it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so making a motion to disperse $5,000 from the Orly A. Whitcomb fund balance to pay for a community care coordinator this year, with the understanding that in future years, we will allot it to the same thing unless something changes with the position or in the
Or
village.
Yes,
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
just change one word of
Oh.
contribute, not pay. Otherwise, that suggests you're going to pay for the whole position.
Yes.
Okay.
Strike that, add contribute.
We'll fix it in the minutes, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, next one, the old fire station fund. So the balance in here is 26,000. And the proposal is to use this money for the tree fund. And if we were to 6.5% of the current estimated funds, that would be 1,700.
Where is the tree fund on our budget? Or, yes, where's the tree fund on our budget?
So this one is,
Did that get,
it's voted by article, correct? Because it has to be voted by the town. Is it an article each year?
It doesn't have to be an article, no, it can be, so
Mm.
long, if we warned it, we could do it at the next village meeting.
Okay.
It has to be a special or a regular meeting.
okay,
Where's the tree fund?
where, what?
I don't know. I'm trying to find it.
Where's the tree fund there?
So there's two,
two spots.
now we find it.
Oh, wait, I found it on the second page, very bottom. So there's $5,000 from the village capital reserve for tree fund. That's one.
Oh, yeah.
So there's $10,000 on the trustees, line item. And then a capital reserve for $5,000. That's taxpayer money going to fund those two.
Okay, so that's 50, so we've got $15,000 in the budget.
Yes.
So this fund could add 1,700 to either the reserve or your budget, whichever it is.
What did we spend last year on the tree fund?
Should be on.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, we can pull that for you. So the capital reserves, it doesn't get spent, it goes into, it gets transferred into the capital fund, yeah.
I just wondered if there was what usually is spent on the tree fund is 15,000 or.
Oh, so this is already in here,
Right.
under village parks, it's already under fertilization work at a different 1,700.
I think that's how we.
Which budget are you
That's-
looking at?
I'm looking at the village.
That's the
budget.
1,700.
For 2026 or 5?
Both.
So this money will come to you in FY 2025.
Okay, so this is the 17. Okay, but so this is in here even though we haven't voted. on it.
No, it isn't in there, can't be in there because we haven't agreed on it.
Okay,
Well,
so what is
last
this
year though, we did the same thing, didn't we?
I know.
We're we're in two different conversations. So, sorry, so, so the check for this year will come in this fiscal year between now and June 30th?
Yes.
Okay. So this is probably a placeholder for next year if that money comes in as well.
Okay,
So what were you relying on?
select or trustee recommended. That should be FY 26, right? It should all be FY 26.
The budget that you have in front of you for later on is FY 26, correct?
Okay, so it's FY 25. At the top,
So what's the number for FY 25 from the public? trust?
1,700.
1,700.
Then
Yeah, but we
that's-
hadn't voted on it.
agreed it.
I was like, oh, was that put in as an assumption that we would vote on it?
Because we did the same thing last year. That's why.
Okay, I just wanna.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so this should say FY 26 at the top.
25.
25.
So if you vote tonight to do this,
Yeah.
then the public trust funds will give you the 1,700 that's in your FY 25 budget. That we assumed you were getting.
So I think there's two things. One is we're talking about this fiscal year that we're in. And then there's also the budget conversation for next year that the 1,700 is allocated in that budget for next year as well.
Okay, yes.
So we can't, so is this a good number 1,700. So we can't vote on that tonight. So I'd ask, so if you vote to agree to that amount of money, then I'd ask you to put this in your next meeting to vote on. By the
Okay. Can we
agenda.
add that to the next agenda?
Yeah.
And then can you approve that this is what you want to do?
At that meeting, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Put on it.
So third one we're going to talk about is the Frank Mackenzie Fund. So the balance in this is just over 4,000, and this came with the express request that they be used for town fireworks. So if we do our normal 5 to 8%, what we'd be doing is giving $280 this year. 280, what's it really? $280 makes no difference to the cost of fireworks. To the fund and the $280 is exactly the same amount of work as if it was a $10,000 check or a $20,000 fund. We're paying auditors, we're paying for check processing, we're paying for volunteers' times, we're paying for Eric's times to manage this. So I have a proposal. The fund is only worth $4,000. I think we should give all the money to town fireworks and close the fund.
Well, and the select board has talked about,
What the select board has talked about is funding fireworks for this July 4th coming up, and then not funding it anymore and asking for an organization locally to run the fireworks and fund it going forward.
so since our new fiscal year starts in June, then in July, we could hand somebody a check for that. It could go to we could pay for this July 4th.
A portion of it, yes.
Yeah. Yes, so it could go to this year, and then next year, if someone else is taking it over, that's what happens.
Or couldn't we spend the money on something else?
No, the provision
Has to
from
be-
the donut
has to be
fireworks
only.
only, yeah.
So can we designate that the explosions are limited to, this is the village firework explosion section? 3 big booms?
Up in the shape of a V, how about that? I think that's a good idea, because that's the select board plans on doing. I'd rather just finish it out this year. Trustees?
Yep.
I agree.
Okay,
Jeffrey?
Yeah, my only reservation is that I think we still want to have fireworks after the select board doesn't pay for it. And then they'd be looking for funds to pay for it and be like, and we would be able to say, well, we'll give 4,000.
so you could delay and not do it this year.
Delay,
Yes,
and
July
do it the following year
Yeah.
when we're looking for funds from the public and we can help out.
Amenable to either one. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that
How
would
much do fireworks cost,
be
Eric?
15,000 about.
So the select board is budgeting 14,000 this year. The fireworks usually come in around 11,000. Then there's a band and everything else that kind of subsidize the rest of the money.
How is the select board's budget going, actual going against budget
This year or next
This
year?
this year?
They haven't had a financial report in a bit, but last time I checked, they were doing similar to the village, about 50%, a little over 53% of the way through the year.
So the money could make more impact next year.
Yes, that's what I think.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Chuck.
So why don't we agree not to make a payment this month?
Right.
Well, we'll make a payment after June, but it can go either.
We can,
Well, how about we vote to close the fund and
Yeah.
write the check on July 1?
Yeah.
To whoever's going to raise the,
not for this year's fireworks.
You're saying not for July
So then you're saying you don't
2025.
want to close it this year?
other,
Want to do
Eric, which,
26.
are they, other fireworks paid out of FY25 budget?
They're usually both. Usually you pay half up front, so usually you pay half in May or June, and then the other half after the fireworks.
So there will be a need for a payment in
And FY25, yes,
fiscal. year.
yes, correct.
Well, then this money could make the second payment, and then that would give the group who are going to take it over time to get money for July 2026.
So
Yeah.
I think we can say we're gonna write the check sometime in the next fiscal year, and if it's in July or if it's next May, so they can make a payment.
Fine,
Yeah.
So long as
So
we're,
it can be used for either fireworks.
well, I think we should say it's for for the year 2026 fireworks.
July 4th, 2026.
Yes.
Okay, so then we're not giving them any money.
Who's gonna pay the second
Right,
pay?
right, so it's kind of.
Town.
Well, presuming, well, here's,
Yeah.
here's the one catch. Wait, you guys, hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
Here's the one catch. What if nobody steps up next year and there are no fireworks?
You have a real.
And there's no fireworks.
No, but then we've got the money, but then we have saved the money for something that's not happening.
So my suggestion was, what if this makes the second payment to the fireworks that are used on July the 1st, 2025, which is effectively fiscal 20.
I think that the select board's gonna handle this year's fireworks.
Are they, or are they just
Sure.
doing it in 25 budget?
So there's money allocated in the budget this year, and there's money allocated if they don't change it on this Thursday for FY 26. So what'll happen is half the money for the fireworks on July, I think we're doing 60th or whatever, of 2025. Half that will come from fiscal 25. The other half will come from fiscal 26.
Right. So it's covered. So that's why I want to word it. So let's hold off. And
You want to use it as a starting
a
fund
starting fund
for the people.
so that we can continue fireworks
That's not a bad
to
idea.
help that
Good idea.
situation.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I just want to keep it open in case it's a for-profit that does it, or in case it doesn't happen at all.
Okay.
So what would happen if a for-profit took it over, or it didn't happen at all next year? Then we've got $4,000 that's just hanging out,
Which you can, yes.
and we would just wait for somebody to do fireworks.
Yeah,
Okay,
New Year's.
so we're gonna, I think it has to be the 4th of July fireworks. It can't be New Year's Eve fireworks. Yeah, it's very specific. So we want to make a vote to close the fund and distribute the money.
Monies later in fiscal year 2026 for 2026 fireworks.
Yes, okay. What did you say?
We just did.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Motion carries.
hey, thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks for all your advice.
Okay, next item on the agenda. Now we're going into discussions, so we don't have any more votes scheduled. The next item is a wassail weekend recap. I think Beth is online.
How about ethics liaison?
I say yes.
So yes, question, Jeffrey. The next vote is to appoint an ethics liaison from Woodstock. Eric, do you want to talk about what the ethics liaison does, why we need to do that?
Yeah, so as we know, the state passed new ethics laws that have gone into effect. They're requiring that every municipality appoint an ethics liaison to serve as a point of contact for communications with the State Ethics Commission. The official language is each municipality acting through its legislative body shall designate an employee as its liaison to the State's Ethics Commission. If a municipality does not have any employees, the legislative body shall designate one of its members as its liaison to the State Ethics Commission. I've talked briefly to the chair of the trustees and the chair of the select board, and they both agree that Stephanie Applefeller would make a great liaison. She's happy to take that on. If the board votes tonight in favor, the select board will take it up Thursday, and she'll be a new liaison.
And how much work will that require of her? Is that a regular thing? Is she keeps?
As with most things from the state, they have not told us the
Because I know
requirement, yes. But it will mostly probably be, if they have more information for us, they'll go through her, and then if we have to send them information, it'll flow through her as well.
Okay.
So just a
We're
point of
gonna be
contact.
required to take some ethics training over the next year.
Correct, yes.
Okay, I like ethics. Then I would make a motion to appoint her as the trustees ethics liaison to the state of Vermont. Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're moving on to discussion. Wassail weekend recap. Beth, now it's your turn. Can you just give us an overview of the weekend and how everything went?
Well, I can tell you that you cannot hear the bagpipes or it was too cold for the bagpipe. Let's just say on Friday night. But the parade itself, the parade with candles and some dogs, the walk from not really a parade, the walk from East End went great. The next day, the weather was perfect. We had a little bit of issue after the parade. Our Wassail committee has met, and I also spoke with Chris today so that we will be discussing parking and maybe not allowing people to, just some kind of crowd control for the streets during the parade. The parade was awesome. We're planning to go forward again and find hopefully a large sponsor for the parade for 2025, and the weekend in general. And Chris and I discussed barricades with ropes between them, so maybe people had to stand back from that because it really became a kind of a hazard. People were just standing in the middle of Route 4, and didn't realize the parade was going to go through them. But other than that, I think very easy to fix. I haven't heard complaints, except for, again, the Maxim Meadow Way, which we'll have to discuss at some point with everyone that is a condo owner down there. I guess I'd be interested in hearing what other people thought.
Well, I know that one corner between Central and Elm is very narrow, and the crowds are really pushing in there. And I know that was a risky corner, and Chris and I talked about it with you as well, figuring out how to build a better barricade there. As they came around that corner, it was tight.
Well, I think if we keep people off the dummy, that if we can, make sure that people are not on the dummy, that takes away 50 people, and not allow them in the road, so that they really have to stand behind, because those horses are big and spooky, or could be. I mean, they're wonderful beasts, but so anyway, thank you.
Have you figured out how to improve things down by the mill building where there were problems?
We will discuss that, and again talk with the owners of the condos down there, because I had no idea, because we've been lining up there forever, that I didn't have any idea that Maxim Meadow Way was a private road. So,
Well, that Maxim Adam Way is, yes, but then you're talking about the parking lot down there.
well, the parking lots, again, we have to have a conversation with the owners and with the participants in the parade. So that, I mean, horses do what they do, but their owners should be responsible enough to have cleaned up after them.
Yeah,
And that's
your-
always been what's happened. And unfortunately, this year it didn't, and then became frozen, and then it became a nightmare. We did pay someone to go down and with their tractor and clean it up on Tuesday morning.
Uh-huh. And we used to have someone go behind the parade for horse race.
We do. We had
still have
the hockey team in Norm Frady's 4x4, whatever it's called. go behind the parade, but they did not, we didn't specify that they had to go clean up after everyone left. It should be the individual horse owners. Everybody has a muck bucket and a shovel with them in their trailer.
Right. Well, I will say, Beth, that the public was so much happier this year than last year with the parade and the entire event it was great. Really
Great,
good,
thank you.
good reports.
How were the,
Um,
how was the bathroom situation? Beth, did you feel like people were,
we had fewer people there. We had fewer
Okay.
people in town than we
Okay.
did the year before. And fewer people we had about 300 or so fewer people.
Okay.
For this wassail than we did for the year before, for
And
the
you're
unfortunate
basing
wassail.
and you're basing that on what?
The numbers the actual numbers at the Welcome Center.
Okay, so if they came and didn't go to the Welcome Center, you're just talking
Right.
bathrooms.
I'm just talking bathrooms now.
Okay.
I just thought of this right this second, but the inn very kindly allowed people to use their facilities this year. They had a system where you could go in the inn, go to the bathroom, go by the gift shop, and go out by the game room. And so perhaps that's why we had fewer. But and I will just say I don't know how many of you, if anyone, because it's so old school, gets Yankee Magazine anymore, but there's a 6-page spread on Woodstock with beautiful photos, not about Wassail, but about Woodstock in January and February and cross country
month-
ski.
Which
What?
issue? Which month issue is that?
I got it yesterday. I
Oh,
received
all
it yesterday.
right, good.
I have it at the office. It is gorgeous. And it's a wonderful au comptoir. They did a great job on Woodstock. So just a FYI. And can I say one more thing that's off topic?
short?
We had 88,000 people use the Welcome Center, over 30,000 people in October, which is 8,000 more than the year before. So we will have to discuss that sooner than later for 2025. When you're done your budget.
Yes, so many things to get through. Well, thank you, and thank you for your work, and thank you for putting that, that committee together. I know it was a group effort this year.
And
And
we met
good show.
again and we're going forward. So thanks.
Trustees, do you have any questions for Beth or comments about Wassail?
No.
Eric?
No, thank you, Beth.
Great, so the next item on our discussion is about village parking revenue. Lisa has taken a stab at this because we've been talking about budget. How can we start working on increasing revenue in ways that are not so heavy-handed on our taxpayers, our residents, our businesses? And so we talked about taking a look at our parking fees and then our parking violation fees. And Lisa has a document that she's given everybody about what other places do so that we can get an idea of what other towns are doing for their fees. Lisa, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, what I did was I went and looked at a couple of towns in Vermont, Brattleboro, Stowe, and Burlington. And then I looked at 2 other towns that are tourism towns, Bar Harbor and Kennebunkport, and looked at their parking fees compared to ours. We are low, lower than most. I also had some conversations with people with members of the police department.
Can you let me share?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna bring it up on this big screen.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking into a bottle. And you know, the three that stand out the most for just as factors, the no parking, the fire hydrant, and the handicap zone, which are three things that if you look, you know, they're higher in other towns, but also I think they're the most, I don't know if I want to say flagrant, or they're the violations that cause the most number of problems when it comes to traffic. That are the prices. Anybody have any questions for me? We also have habitual offender. A couple of places have habitual offender programs where if you receive so many tickets over the course of the year, you then receive fines. It's kind of a deterrent, you know. Other ones have, I don't know if we have loading zone. Is that on there? Do we have loading zone? We do have loading zones, not private loading zones, but public ones. So anyways, this is what other people do, and it's only the violation fees, but I didn't know if what anyone thought about any of this or how anyone felt. I mean, to me, handicap should be addressed. It's just wrong and it should be expensive. But Eric brought up something else when we were talking before about, what is this? We have to make a change in the, what is it, Eric?
This may require an ordinance change. And so that, as we now are very familiar with, has to be warned, and then you have to do the writing, and then it's there for 60 days. People can object to it and file a petition. So it is a process. And what my recommendation, Lisa, was that I would like to see ideally a cleaner version of the parking ordinance. And so this might be an opportunity to actually, similar to what we did last year with the green permit, is actually spend time on cleaning it up and making it more straightforward, easier to understand for everyone, and kind of make it a much better document for everyone.
Right. And the reason why this was brought up right now is because they're getting ready to order new tickets. And I don't know how many months, is it a year supply or 6 months supply, Eric? Do you know?
I talked to the chair about this. I believe it'll be at least 6 months they last. It maybe a year.
And that's coming up in March. So,
I mean, there's nothing to say I mean, you just don't want to throw out things and find
Yeah,
out you don't have to.
that's-
So it's not, we have to, but it would be
or
nice.
now would
that
be
way.
the time if we want to change it now, or wait, we have time if we
Yeah.
decide.
But I like the idea of doing something comprehensive, but taking a look at these numbers, I mean, especially, I agree with Lisa, like the handicap thing should be no. Like $25 is not, I don't think that's enough of a deterrent. But these things that are, I mean, everybody else with the exception of Stowe has it in the hundreds. So I think that one might be an easy one, but I think this is clearly like the first conversation and we can continue, but I'd be interested to hear what other people think about these.
I agree that we could go up on our prices for sure.
I see a couple of them that could go up a little. I don't think we should raise them a tremendous amount, except for handicap. That's the only one I agree with, is especially low. Other than that, I'm looking at Stowe and even some of the others, we're not that far off. So, you know, if we went up $10
Yeah.
on meter violations, and that'd be fine with me. I think we should be conservative here. And when we get to the budget, you know, I want to talk about, as I brought up before, parking meter fees. I think that's going to affect our budget. Here, we're talking about safety and, in terms of the handicap one.
And I think in talking to, some of our meter folks, they talk about, especially when there have been construction situations, there are people who will park their cars places on street where they know they'll get a ticket, but it's the cost of doing business, so they will get the tickets over and over and over again. So if it can hurt a little bit, so for people who are abusing the system, that's where I think, some of these things where it's like the first one is this, the second one is this, because like everybody makes a mistake. I get that. But after that, if people are abusing the system,
And
with that sort of
Kennebunk
thing.
has that.
yes. I see
Kennebunk
that.
has a rising fee once, twice. But theirs is more to do with, parking lots. They have a lot of resident parking lots and different parking lots, which we don't have that. And you have to say here, we are the only one of all this group that doesn't have a parking lot. So, when everyone else here does, including Stowe, so it's kind of a different animal.
Yeah.
If I just make a point to what I was talking about earlier, I was looking at the ordinance while we talked. And so the persons who shall violate violations related to spaces reserved for handicapped persons shall be fined an amount of money equal to the fine set by the state of Vermont waiver penalty and effect at the time of the violation. I looked quickly for that. It seems like the state of Vermont's $100 to $150.
Oh, so we just have it wrong.
So apparently,
Yeah.
so we could actually be charging harder for that right now, and we're not, based on what I think the ordinance says. But I want to look more into it. But this is what I mean by the ordinance just
Yeah.
not being clear, not being easily understood.
Yep.
So that's just a small thing I just caught right now.
Nice. Thanks, Eric.
The only
Parliamentarian.
thing that I would say about this is like, I'm just gonna use Colby and Tobias and working on the big house down the street. If we had lots of places for them to park, that would be one thing, but we don't.
Yeah.
So maybe what we need to do is have like a worker's permit. Really? That, they pay for. And instead of getting a $10 ticket, like maybe we could make it, I don't know, we'd have to figure it all out, but
A big chunk.
I mean,
per
I
week or
think
whatever.
to make it difficult on people working in the village trying to enhance our town, I think is the wrong thing to do.
But I mean, that also goes to employees. Because if someone's working in a store and parks in a parking thing, they're working to enhance the town. It's no different.
No, it is different. because
No,
they-
no, it's
there's-
not.
There
They
are
should
free
know that.
parking spaces in the village for employees.
I'm just
Don't
saying,
have to park next to a building that they're working.
not everybody that parks in front of Tobiason's needs to have their truck right there. They choose to park close, but they don't.
Where else can they park?
Oh, I'm just saying, there's free spaces down by
But I think to
the,
Brenda's point, they paid for the space per day.
That's fine.
For the week. When I was building restaurants, I had to close down, put dumpsters. I would have to pay for those parking spots for months,
right, which is fine.
every day. So it was, our budget for parking was tens of thousands.
I'm just saying that a permit is only as good as it. We don't want people to take advantage of it. Space is a space. If you want it, you have to pay for it.
Brenda's, I think you're saying
The same
carrot
thing.
and stick, as it were.
I just think, like, I'm just once again using Colby and Tobias. Okay, here was a rundown house in our village that looked absolutely horrible, nightmare.
Right.
These people have been working so hard, doing their jobs and enhancing that building. And in the long run, it's enhancing our whole community. And why would we target them for doing their job when in fact we don't have any other better place for them to park? They can't park at the bank. They can't park out behind the salon because my neighbors park out there. My neighbors who have their own driveways park on the back street. You know what I'm saying? There's no extra parking for anybody, so.
Well, we've got some other things that I wanted to go over as well, budget related. So, I mean, it sounds like we want to make some changes here.
Yeah,
We're not
I
sure what
think
they
there's
are.
ways to make changes, but I think that we really need to think about who they're hurting.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's good. Thank you. I think that's a good way to frame it. In addition to that, you also have, and Eric, is it okay if I also talk about this because it's about revenue?
I don't know what you're talking about, but
I have, read my mind. I also have a list that I gave to everybody of our, of the permit fees that we have
yep.
and how much we're charging. And that's another thing that we can be looking at. Again, this is a broader conversation about revenue, but starting to look at that and is that the appropriate fee? Should it be more? Should it be less? Should it be different for other people? You know, we have recently changed the green and the gore, so I think that's something that certainly should just sit for a while because it's only been in place for 6 months. But we've got, you know, the use of the sidewalk, use of East End sidewalk for construction. We don't charge people for anything. So there's that, they've been using up that sidewalk space for a long time and we don't require they pay anything except for paying for the 2 parking spaces that are there. That's a thing. We tell people to pay for a banner permit, but not for a parade permit. Does that make sense? I don't know. Our village excavation permit, yard sale permit, I know that we need.
We don't have a parade permit?
We have a parade permit. I didn't add that on here, but there's not a cost for a parade permit.
Okay.
But there is one. I'm sorry, I left that off, but we don't charge for that. So why are we charging $50 for a banner, but not a permit fee for a parade, which is much more complicated than a banner? So this is just to have, this is a starting off point of, does this make sense? Do we keep it? Is this an opportunity for us to increase revenue in a way that is more equitable? It's just for people using things. Do we leave it alone? That's fine too. And then there's one more piece that I gave you all, and this is something that I'm intending on working on more after we get through the budget. When Robert has a little bit more time on his hands, but we had talked about the police are used for lots of different events.
That's actually on the agenda for.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll show.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And we can move it up if you want to kind of.
No, that's okay. No, we can, I don't need to. I'll follow rules. So that's Wausau, village parking.
Well,
Yes.
the village parking, before we move forward,
Yes.
since we are at a timeline, would it be best if we just say, let the tickets go forward at this point and we'll have a discussion? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I think if we're gonna review the ordinance, that's gonna take us a long time.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, good point. So the next item is a discussion of short-term rentals. I think this is just, our intention with this is just an update on.
Yep.
You know, things, the rules have just gone into effect, and so getting an update on how it's going.
So right now, in the village, we have 11 total applications so far. 8 that have paid, 3 that have not paid yet. So 3 are outstanding, 8 have paid. There's about $4,078 that we will receive when those 3 have paid. So the issue we're having kind of internally is, obviously, we never hired a short-term rental enforcer. So it's very difficult on the map that we have to kind of realize where people are for 2 reasons. One, the map doesn't make a difference between the village and the town. Second, you could be in the town, but on Airbnb, you could put the location of your short-term rental as in the village. So it looks more desirable to people when they sign up. They assume they're on the green when really they could be 3 miles away. But that shows up where Airbnb has them on the website, so that's more difficult. Third, places like the Shire, the Woodstock Inn, et cetera, can list rooms on Airbnb as well. So that shows up through the system. All these things can be changed, but it's employee time and going through the process of working with them. So just for example, right now there's 199 short-term rentals listed in Woodstock, but we know some of them are the resort, we know some of them are the Shire, we know some of them are other things. So it is, we have some of the information, but what we really need is just a lot of time for someone to go through and kind of make those changes so we can exclude hotels, Airbnb, bed and breakfasts, et cetera, to get a better idea where people are. And then same thing for going after them. It's time. We have to pull a report out of the system. We have to see what the address is, and we have to go through permitting and find out where they are. And then if they are in the village and they're not registered, send a letter out. So it's just person power that we don't have to spend weeks on for 4,000, so that's where we're kind of in it. I think when this ordinance was put in place, the assumption was the town and village would pass it and have revenue that could help fund a position that could spend time on this, even if it's a part-time position. We had some of those early interviews with people, but we just couldn't justify the costs of what they were going to charge, not knowing what they're going to bring in, when it's only going to be the village who had the new ordinance fees. So long story short, right now we have 11 short-term rentals in the village that have followed the rules and have signed up and are going through the process.
Where's the figure of 25? 25 in the village that we know of, that I saw.
Where did that number?
That number was at a previous report, not long ago.
It could have been 25 short-term rentals, but I don't know, again, if we haven't had the time to dig in to see if they're actually in the village or if they're just pointed in the village on the Airbnb a form, or if it's the Shire, or if it's the resort. We just haven't had time to dig into who actually owns that Airbnb and if it's actual Airbnb or if it's something different.
Wow.
So if we had someone dedicated, let's say 20 hours a week, we could definitely have all this streamlined and have, there are 15 people in the village, 11 of them are registered. We're gonna go off those 4 people, get them up to code. But right now it's just Stephanie. And if anyone's been in the office, Stephanie's running around every day, doing 8,000 different things.
Is there a plan to post listserv on the website, like a reminder, those sorts of things?
Yeah. So this is kind of not a conversation with the trustees, but a lot of this will depend on the town if they want to revisit their short-term rental ordinance. And also the village wants to revisit yours. You still have 110, spots available technically in the village for people to sign up to. So I think it's just a larger conversation everyone needs to have.
Trustees, do you have any questions or comments about?
No, but
yours.
I was, but no.
Okay, thank you for the update.
The hand up.
No, I think that's his mouse.
Oh, okay, sorry, Eric.
No, I had the same thought. Next item on the agenda is permit rules, flags in parking meters. I'm gonna let Jeffrey lead this discussion because I've already asked for my organization to put something up, so I just want to recuse myself from the conversation. Do you have questions?
Well, the discussion, no, we talked about that those holders are part of the village property. And that if the village has approved something to go in them, that they will go in them regardless of anyone's opinion about it. And I'm trying to remember what else this is about.
If you wanted a process for people to apply to do that.
Well, sometimes American flags show up. Do we have a thing that says, we're allowed to vendors are allowed, I mean, store owners are allowed to put an American flag in. I don't know, because sometimes they just show up in places that are technically the village's property.
Yeah, I mean,
think that's what
they
they
go
said,
out
right?
for Veterans Day, Memorial Day, July 4th, we see American flags. Which is great. I don't see a problem with that, but I'm not sure what it is we're trying to accomplish here in terms of, other than saying that if we approve an organization's use of particular flags, they may not be removed by, any citizens if they're approved.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's my only concern. Is there something else?
Just if you wanted a formal process or not. If anybody just puts something in, that's okay. People just put stuff in.
Beyond the American flag? I don't know if that's okay. I don't think so. I think we could, well, I don't know, we could discuss saying, during national holidays, American flags can be put in those things, for those holders. We could say that and limit it to that, other than for other events that receive permits and involve flags that are approved. How about that? What do you think?
The flag holders are empty unless there's a permit to put flags in them or during
National
national holidays.
holidays, and then American flags can be put in
Only.
only. Yeah, on national holidays, I think it's just American flag.
Eric has that.
So like, right now, it's not a holiday. American flag should not be in one of those holders. Is that what you're saying? Or can American flag be in a holder at any point unless there's a vote by the trustees, have a different flag in there for a certain period of time?
I don't know, see, I have no problem with the American flags being in those holders at any time, but that's just me. But if we were trying to make it uniform, I would say it's important to say
Well,
national holidays.
are we going towards the gay pride flags from last year? Is that what this is in reference to?
Well, that's what this came up as, because there was, one business that
Right.
removed the flags,
And you've already approved that for this year.
Yeah.
and, that's our property, the village's property, and it was approved, so that can't be done, but I don't know what we should do in terms of, other enforcement.
I didn't know, I couldn't remember the conversation, so I didn't know if it was, can only put American flags up. I had no idea in the regulations on national holidays, or they can put them up at any time.
We don't have
That's-
regulations.
We don't have a
You
regulation.
don't have, okay, thank you.
We don't have a regulation.
Okay.
I'm just saying, do we want one? Or do we want to just have a regulation that states other than American flags, nothing can be put in them other than approved, permits? How about that? I don't know.
I know Wendy has a comment.
Wendy, do you have a comment?
Thank you. Actually, I was very slow. I was trying to raise my hand for the short-term rental. So I just have a couple fact point / questions but not about this. So I'll go back on mute. Maybe I can ask it later.
Yes, ask it later while we're on this topic. Any other input on having something specific? I would like to see that say that you cannot remove flags that have been approved for a permit.
And do what?
And do what?
Well, I mean, it's one thing to say it.
Like, what's the?
Yeah, what's the
What's the response if
Police
they
involved,
remove it?
yeah,
Yeah.
destruction
Well,
of
if we make
property.
it an ordinance, or,
It could be a fee attached to it if
there-
a violation, yeah.
yeah, there could be a fee. And yeah, that's the kind of thing where you call the police and they come over and they say, look, you have to put that flag back. What do we think about doing that?
Don't y'all look at me.
I'm not looking at you. I'm gonna go down. I think this is part of a larger discussion around the use of the sidewalks and parking meters that's happening in the village right now. Because there are things that are happening, people are not following the current things like, displays are out farther than they should be. Signs are placed where they shouldn't be placed. Is this part of a whole discussion rather than just this discussion?
Well, we already have ordinances about the things you're talking about.
Right, but they are
That's
not being
an
enforced.
Yeah, well, that's planning and zoning always was the enforcers in the past of that.
Yeah,
Like go on this bicycle.
Yeah,
I know.
so I think that's a question of just, reporting and enforcing. And that can happen, but now we're talking about a different problem. The flags, and specifically, we know of one case that we want to do something to make it clear that if there's a permit for flags in the village-owned flag holders, you may not remove them.
Oh, it's like stealing, really.
Right.
Hmm.
Destruction of property.
Yeah.
Right.
I would never go.
Okay, and do we want, and in which case do we want to say that there's a penalty of, a $25 fee if you do so? Or whatever,
I'm okay with the penalty. I think it'd be higher.
Yeah, I do too.
higher, yeah, maybe.
$150.
Yeah, I do too.
500.
Sorry, I mean.
Slap 'em.
Aye.
So do we want to make this like an actual ordinance? Because we then have to, we want to write it up and put it all together and have it voted on.
Yeah. Otherwise, what can we make it? What's lower than an ordinance? Regulation of some sort? Is there something that we can do that could have a fee that's not an ordinance?
I'm sure we could probably tack it onto some police related matter, but I would have to look into that.
Why don't we look into that and see if we can do it that way rather than an ordinance? And then we can think about it more specifically. But I think that's where we're tending to want to be.
Yep.
If there's a permit, you may not contradict what's allowed in the permit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I-
All right.
When do you have your hand up for this conversation?
I did have something to contribute. I'm sorry. Yes. I'm not sure. We have my understanding is this came out of a problem that arose from one experience 1 year in, with the Pride weekend. Am I correct?
Well, I think what it really stems from is that there is no policy in place for what can and cannot be put on village property.
Okay, it exposed another thing. Okay. Okay, so it's a bigger topic than just the parking meters. My points are just, you don't want to make a rule for one or two bad actors all the time. But the other point is sometimes we have meters and sometimes we don't. I mean, in different spots in the town. So it's not just meter related issue, is my other point.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay.
Anything else on that before we move on?
Mhm.
Okay, so next item to discuss is the spreadsheet. that I gave you about, and this is just a starting point of, as we've been talking about budget and what we're spending money on and potential new revenue, we talked about that our police are used a lot for events. And that most of the time the police are not, that their time and work, a lot of that is overtime, is paid for by taxpayers. It is not paid for by the event coordinators. This is a spreadsheet that I've started with, just listing out things. It's by no means exhaustive. It's just where I started. But looking at, because I run Pride of Woodstock, we had 3 officers, and we ended up paying them $300 or $900 for the various events that we had. And so that's just an example of, you know, one small event and how much can be spent on officers. So I know that the Covered Bridges Half Marathon also pays for officers once. Robert is in a position where he's done with the budget. I'm going to get more numbers from him and from the police on this. But this is just a list of other things that I know that we have the police working on: Wassail, Halloween, Alumni Day Parade, Veterans Day Parade, Memorial Day Parade, Taste of Woodstock, Sidewalk Sale in August, Sidewalk Sale in May, Market on the Green, Eastern States Bike Race, Zach's Place Turkey Trot, Art Festival, Bookstock, Apples and Crafts, 4th of July. So these all have some, a lot, a little, but these are things that my understanding, and I could be wrong, is that the event organizers are not paying for this. So this is something that the taxpayers are paying for it. We might be fine with all of it. We might be fine with some of it, but I wanted to start that conversation of, let's think of the things that officers are doing that are not part of their normal, their normal job of stopping crime, community policing. And some of this could be community policing. But if some of this are things that we think events should be paying for and working into their budget, let's have that conversation.
Each of these events had the same amount that your event had. 3 officers at $900. That's a total of $14,400 additional dollar per year that could be coming out of taxpayers' pockets as a person. Lesser, I don't have to count.
Yeah. But that's a discussion of, is that something that we want to be funding, that our constituents want to be funding, or not? So this is just a starting point. Hopefully at our meeting in February, after we've gotten through the budget, fill these numbers in more so we have actual numbers to work with. But then we can start a conversation with us, with the community, about, are we willing to subsidize these things? Yes, no.
No, I think we need to get some community input on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, if there's something else, we can move on. I just want to get the conversation started. Nothing online?
No.
Okay, next, back to the fun FY26 budget discussion. Eric, where are we?
You need to bring it back up to you. Okay. So currently, as presented, the trustees are at a 13.3% estimated tax increase over last year. That is with an estimated 5.9% increase in expenses over last year as well.
The last we met, you had been talking about some potential cuts in here. We know that one of the items we had discussed about changing the healthcare contribution, the select board decided they didn't want to change that. Since that's something we share, that's off the table. We talked about, I know the.
Can I just interrupt there for a second? In theory, the trustees could vote to change the health care for the 5 or 6 employees that just fall underneath the village, which would be the police department. So not recommending that, I'm just saying legally you'd have the ability to do that if you wanted to.
Think we talked about with the police had some additional things in their budget. The one with the tires is now just tires out.
I could not get a hold of, I could not get that question answered today, but yes.
So it's possible that because they've got, the police recently purchased snow tires, the budget item would not be to buy snow tires, but just change them over, which would be significantly cheaper.
Oh, so they already have the tires.
They just got them.
Yeah, we had an issue a few weeks ago where a police vehicle got trapped in the snow and couldn't get out, and we had the fire department to help them. So we made sure they had snow tires going forward.
Safety first, right?
Yeah.
The other things,
Now the gun, is that down to 1, the rifle?
we had talked about either reducing that to 1 or we also had a recommendation, and I think Chris was gonna look into if there were places that he could get grants to pay for those, for the rifles.
Yeah, he's looking at that now. He's also looking into if they can sell excess supplies
Okay.
they don't use and have revenue that way as well. But currently in the budget, it's 1 rifle that's budgeted for in the police budget.
And that's how much? I just don't have it.
It's like 1,200.
So even though I'm against it, for obvious reasons, someone asked me to ask everyone about the candy for Halloween. I'm just the messenger. Anyone want to make an adjustment to that?
I don't.
And I'm just
Yeah, I've
passing
had
message.
comments on both sides from the community. And I almost would want to think about this as similar to the fireworks. It's not as big of an event, of course, but you know, if we say this year we'll do it, but it's the last year, like I like their concept of we're gonna do it this year and then next year, you know, that gives the opportunity to, maybe it's all donations or it's whatever. I know there's been an interest in making changes to the actual holiday night. That again has got to be a group that's doing it because I don't know that we have the bandwidth to make all those changes. You know, really the only thing that we collect candy and then we block off roads. We could choose to not block off roads. We don't have to do that right now. We can do that. I think we want to start having that conversation in maybe the summer. So I can, it's $750 is how much we spent on candy.
I mean, I like the idea of saying, okay, let's do it this year. But we need to turn this over to a committee. Committee. To do for fireworks, 'cause
So I'd like to
huge.
bring up my idea. Serious consideration. We're at 13.3%. We started at 17%. I would like us to consider raising the parking meter fees from $1 an hour to $1.50 an hour, which would reduce us down to about another 10%, so that our tax increase would be about 3.3%. Which I think would be happy news for our constituents. I don't think it would hurt by doing that. I think the people who support the meters pay a whole lot more where most of them live. And we could also consider at the same time doing our locals a favor by saying, we'll go back to the 10 to 4 hours, giving them an hour between 4 and 5 o'clock to be in town without worrying about paying the meters at all. That's one thing we could do. But I'm strongly in favor of raising it to $1.50. I was thinking of $2 an hour, which would make us like Burlington. Even if we just get to, you know, we could always consider need to raise it in increments, but if we raise it 50 cents an hour, I don't think that's a big deal. but it would be a big deal to our budget.
How much did you estimate? that would be?
About $75,000. This is Robert's estimate.
And this would have to be done by July 1st, correct?
Yes, go into effect.
Yeah, again, it's probably an update to the ordinance.
Yeah.
So this is an ordinance change.
This would be.
Yeah.
Yes, an update that would go into effect July 1st, unless public didn't go for it.
So for the budget, though, if this is an ordinance change, we can't, an ordinance can't be passed and warned and all those things before the budget is due. So could we even include that in our budget?
It's a risk. It's a risk because the ordinance could be petitioned and it could fail. So the way to protect it is you could have the language on the village meeting warning, say raise taxes up to, which would be in this case a 13.3%. And then if the ordinance, if you decide to change the parking fees and it passed and didn't get petitioned, you would then you don't have to raise all that money because the language is up to. But try to communicate that to the public. It may also be
Could be 13%.
or it could be 3%. So that's where you kind of get into the difficult spots.
What if we just put it in? What's the risk is that they get turned down, but what happens if we put it in and it gets turned down?
So if
just be off.
If the language is up to raise taxes up to amount that's a 3% tax increase and the ordinance fails, you'd be running the village sign off the year with the $75,000 deficits.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to either raise revenues to catch up or cut expenses that year to not have deficits.
Right.
The last audit was last year. You had a $9,000 undesignated fund balance. I think that'll go up this year with the audit, but you're still don't have enough money to cover that gap.
That's too much of a risk. I mean, I don't disagree that I think it's fine to have the conversation about the parking, but I don't want to, for the sake of this budget, I want real numbers.
Well, I think we should go ahead with the ordinance change though, and explain to people at village meeting, that this number will come down.
May come down.
If
Well, and we've also talked about with Lisa's ideas about the parking that we want to look at the entire ordinance. So this is also it's also a bandwidth question. If we need to do the entire ordinance, the fees are a piece, the fines are a piece. There are other things in that ordinance that we might not get that done in time. I mean,
we might not get that done in time. Okay, I'm in favor of doing this separately though, because this would have a huge impact. The other fines that we talked about earlier, they will not have as big an impact. They just don't occur that in same numbers.
do we have that information?
What?
Parking fines?
So
That's something we're looking into. What do those?
I'm just trying to sorry.
That's probably a larger
So parking fines, we budget 31,400. We have about just under 20,000 right now. I think one of the issues is not knowing what fine is which. So then we'd probably really dig into the numbers and
just would have to pull that.
pull out, yeah, exactly, probably adjacent issue of what goes what, and then what would the impact if it went from 50 to 100 or vice versa. So it's not as clear cut as just doubling it like it is with the parking.
Okay,
With everything, it's the same amount of money.
so that's a broader thing.
Yeah.
I think the risk is really low that the public would turn down an ordinance change of 50 cents more for the meters, especially if you give them 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock back. I just don't see that happening, but
Yeah, I think you could do that, but I think for the warning, you would have to have what the total tax base could be, which is the
No, I-
13%, yeah.
I understand, yeah. I'd like to be able to say, in other words, want to not act on it, if, what, I would love to get the ordinance changed, at least that part of it, if not the whole thing, more rapidly, so that we're in a position of saying, this is up to 13.3%, but it may very well be down to 3% as a result of the ordinance change. I think that's a real.
Trustees at this
Oh.
end of the table? What say you? What's your thoughts?
I just feel that there's more work that we should do on parking. I think there's other ways that we could, up revenue. I think we've talked about it before about selling parking passes for people that might be elderly, that don't really want to get out and try to figure out how to use Park Mobile, who don't want to that don't have coins in their pocket and they just want to pull up and park their car and go into the post office. If we could sell a parking permit for, let's just say $500 a year, I'm just gonna say, $300 a year, $200 a year. I think we could capture another audience that it would be more of a guaranteed income. Because we'd have that money at hand as opposed to getting it. I just think there's a whole group of people out there that would really like that. I think elderly people especially.
Well, that's part of a long-term idea of
Yeah,
changing things major.
Yeah,
But I think that we should think about ways of reducing our budget. And I think
Increasing revenue.
by increasing revenue in a way that we have dollar figures that are comparable with years and years of this is how much we take in each year. And if we increase this by 50 cents, we're likely to reduce our budget by 10%. I think that's so significant that it's worth going forward with that. I don't see the downside.
I want to hear from the business, the broader business.
I've talked to Beth about it.
Okay.
She didn't have a problem. But
I'm having a little trouble understanding this, my first budget. So increasing, taking, let's say you add 50 cents an hour and you add $50,000 to the actual budget here.
Increases our revenue.
Increases our revenue, right?
Yes.
but more than 50.
Right, but I'm just giving that figure because my brain doesn't work that well. So there's that. So, but we haven't had a vote on it or passed the ordinance. So we could get turned down. And at that point, then we're in $50,000 deficit.
As soon
Yeah,
as we
no,
start.
yeah, but as Eric pointed out, this wouldn't be in the budget. This would be something we could explain. We could change the ordinance to create this. It wouldn't be in the budget, but it could be explained that due to the change in ordinance, your reality next year, fiscal year 2026, would be more like 3.3%.
So I think,
If the ordinance goes through.
yeah, so what Jeffrey's saying is, hypothetically, you take the budget you have now, a 13% increase, you say, vote on, this is a budget for FY26, this is what the warning will say, this is what the public will vote on. You'd also say, we're trying to find ways before July 1 to lower that tax rate. This is one of our ideas. If it passes, we feel we'll bring in X amount of dollars so we can lower the tax we have to collect will actually be 5%, 6%, 3%, not the 13%. But you would have the residents vote on the budget as is, as a 13%. The language would state up to X amount of dollars tax raised. So you'd have the ability to not get all that money if you don't need to.
Right.
Just the inverse of this, last year, around this time, the Plan and Zoning Office were talking about bringing in $300,000 of new revenue with short-term rentals. We did not fund that in the budget because it was a hypothetical. We had to go through the ordinance. Right now, we have $8,000 in short-term rental revenue. So if we had budgeted that $300,000, town and village would be looking at a massive decrease. So,
Yeah, so it can't be in the budget, but it certainly, if we move on it, it would be a change that if the ordinance got passed, it would affect it. It would in reality affect it.
This is a really weird question. But no question's too weird, I know.
Do it.
When do we actually decide?
so what'll happen is, at village meeting, the budget we voted on, if it passes, it passes. And then what they're basically voting on is, the expenses. And then kind of what we feel are the, up to a certain dollar tax dollars they've given us permission to tax them for. And then we will raise that money based on what the grand list is as the grand list comes in for the new year. So we're basing the 13.3% tax increase on the grand list for last year. And usually throughout history, the grand list does increase. So usually it won't be 13.3, it'll be a little bit lower. So that's kind of how it works. But we won't know how those figures until the grand list is complete, I think in April. And then when we see the tax rate over the summer.
So how does that play, Jeff's proposal play into that?
So what we would say, and Jeffrey's proposal is, hypothetically, we approve this budget. Village Warning would say, the village residents give the trustees the authority to collect taxes up to, I think the number here is $782,184.92. So we'd have the legal authority to collect that amount of taxes from village residents. If the ordinance passes, we can say, okay, this revenue has come in. Now we feel we don't have to raise $700,000 in taxes. So that's what the tax rate would be based off that number instead.
Thank you, Eric.
And 85% or more than meter revenue is paid for by people who don't live here.
Is it?
Hmm?
So I think Jeffrey's point aside, is there changes you want to make to the budget as you have in front of you right now when it comes to expenses? Or
Take the one rifle out and just work on grants or other ways? Because it's a new item. But that's my opinion.
I agree with you.
I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference. And I think it's something that we need,
I think we need it.
officers need it.
I just wonder if we can get it in a different way.
I agree. But we probably can get it a different way. They brought it up. I agree.
So we also talked about the only other space we really have is like Christmas lights.
Well, the $1,000, I will live with the $1,000 fee to the west, but not 4,000.
Okay, so that's a change I've made. Okay, so we've got $1,000 for the west parking lot.
Live with it. I know, I'm flexible, the tree.
The tree fund is $10,000. I mean, that's,
Already.
we can,
There's
I
not
mean, we
much.
could cut the town report.
Yeah.
Looks like last year we had $500 budgeted for the town report. This year we have 15
Yeah, because that's what it ended up costing, I think, of like 1,200 last year.
for the village report?
Yeah.
Can we just, I mean, that's mostly online. I mean, do you happen to know how much one report costs?
I can pull the figures, but I know last year we were severely over budget.
Yeah, so how many did we print?
And how many did we throw out?
So my first year, we didn't print enough and we had to go back and do a second printing for both the town and the village. Last year, I don't know how many printed, I can pull that number, but it was significantly more expensive than we thought it was gonna be or budgeted for.
So maybe we could just reduce the number.
I mean, but if they're gonna go over anyway,
Could we put it online and have people request a print?
I mean, we do have it online.
We do have it online. What we usually do is we have copies. We have to quote unquote distribute the reports by state statute. So we have copies here. We usually bring them to the Thompson Senior Center as well. But what happens is a lot of people come, see it, pick it up, take it home, never use it, come back on village meeting day and get another copy. A lot of people on day of village meeting will want a copy in their hands.
Yeah, we should still have some.
So it's that balance of how many do you order and how many people are gonna actually pick them up. I would love to have them just online or have, paper copies like this. People like
Yeah, no,
their village report, yeah.
some,
Just wonder if we can print them out like on our machine.
We can. I've offered that to people in the 2 years here, and a lot of them want the actual a copy. And so I'm happy not to print it. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm saying we're the ones internally who get the complaints when they come in and they don't have it. So if the trustees want to go that way, I'm totally fine. I think we just have to message that as a cost saving measure, we're gonna print out, or we're only gonna hand them out at village meeting day, the day of, and there'll be soft copies available in our offices that kind of look something like more like this.
I think there's also a way to, at the meeting or before the meeting, just making a PDF very easily printable so people can print it at home if they want. And then the day of having a QR code ready to go, because almost everybody has a phone. And I mean, Lord knows you have to like make it bigger, but people could walk in and scan a QR code and be able to look at it. I mean,
You're forgetting people my age
I
and
know,
above.
I know.
You're,
okay, your iPad.
Find out how many we printed.
no, I know people.
Yeah, I mean, let's find out.
Okay.
Yep.
Because it could be that, instead of 150,
Print half.
we print half.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
And the rest is online.
yes,
Print your own or
Right.
ask Eric to print your own.
let's find out if we can still print some.
Yeah.
And have the rest on them.
We need trees. Got $10,000 for trees. Last year we had 15,000, so that's a cut already.
Yeah, we have, yeah. Okay,
Does anybody want to cut that any further?
no,
Oh,
no,
No.
these are expensive.
Um. That's really all we have.
Yeah, to Jeffrey's point earlier, need to figure out
What did we have for
Bigger.
our,
revenue resources.
contingency? Or is that one?
That's up right now to 10,000, I believe.
Donate a tree. Oh, wait, no, it was at 17 and now it looks like it's,
12,338.
okay,
what?
a contingency?
It's unclassified is, I think, the
the contingency was 15,000 last year.
last year was 15,000, correct?
Right, and I propose that we make it 5,000. Because we didn't use it. And if there's extraordinary circumstances, That we could always try to access the the endowment fund. For extraordinary things, you know. Aware of.
Anybody else want to reduce the contingency? Brenda does not want to reduce the
I
contingency.
don't want to
Laura,
reduce it.
no. Laura.
Lisa,
Lisa,
no.
whatever your name is. Frank,
What does the contingency actually fund?
It's basically there to fund any expenses that aren't budgeted for, or any overages or anything outside what we thought we'd have to budget for that year. So think of legal fees, think of you know, a serious
Storm,
a storm or a serious wreck to a car that's uninsured or on a warranty, with the pay $7,000 to have it fixed. A scenario where employee leaves and we have to pay out vacation time that wasn't budgeted for, sick time that wasn't budgeted for. Parking meter, the kiosk breaks and we have to fix them, things like that, where we're just unbudgeted for expenses.
Last year, for
no, that comes out of that.
Last year we used it for porta potties for Wausau and I think foliage. This year we've used it for picnic tables. And we'll use it for other things as well this year.
I'm comfortable maybe at 10, but not any lower than that.
Okay.
I don't want to,
all right,
Frank, you don't want to change it at all?
I don't want to leave it at 10.
Okay,
Sounds good.
okay, so
okay,
So 10,000.
10,000.
And was
that's lowering.
that any was there a majority on the rifles keeping it, not going away? I think there was, Stevie was again wanted to take it away. Brenda, you wanted to potentially keep it. I don't know where everyone else fell on it.
I want to take it away.
Not the rifle itself, just the budget item.
Just the budget.
Yes.
Yeah, right,
Trying to get it in a, via a
In a
grant.
grant form.
yeah.
And what if we can't?
Well, we've never had the rifles before, so this is a new, and that's the only reason that I wanted to zero it out is because we are adding snow tires, which is completely needed. I think that's more important than the rifle because we need the snow tires all the time. So that's already, the police added 2 new things, rifles and snow tires. I think the snow tires are the priority. The rifles, I think that there are lots of opportunities to get those other places. I think that the police should have them, but it's I think in a year when our taxes are going so far up, this is not the year to do new things that aren't mission critical.
What I could recommend too is, in a world where the trustees are looking at a surplus at the end of this fiscal year, you can always allocate some money for a rifle then, simpler for next year. If Jeffrey's right and we don't use the contingency fund next year, you could use that fund towards a rifle too as well, or whatever, need to be out there.
You know, I had an interesting conversation. Just want to throw this out, kind of germane to what we're talking about right now, with the chief of police at the Windsor Police Force. And she asked me, she said, I said, how many officers do you have full time? She said 10, twice as many as you guys. You guys have more part time, but your budget is almost twice as large as ours. It shocked me.
That's a conversation worth having.
Yep.
Just throwing it out there. That shocked me.
Are there any other cuts or changes?
Oh, we did
Trustees?
talk about the trustees waiving their,
I think we had talked about that when we were talking about potentially,
It was sort of to go along with, if you take a 2% cut,
yeah.
oh, okay,
there's
so
a-
we're letting that go. Okay,
but our
all right.
would take nothing. But the 2% thing didn't happen.
Wendy, did you have a comment about this topic? You're muted, Wendy.
Thank you. I have
Sure.
it's about the budget. I was looking through the packet. I'm not sure I can find what I'm looking for, but and it coincidentally, it's about short-term rental on the budget. Was the software purchase a one and done deal for the the software that's monitoring activity?
Currently it is budgeted in the next budget cycle for the town and village.
So it is, and so the village is carrying a portion of it,
Correct.
and how much is that?
Roughly $12,000.
May I make a comment?
Please.
Would it behoove us to ask the question of, given the split vote, given the lack of manpower to enforce and at all of the other aspects that we've talked about, that we don't know the numbers, we're not sure. I'm worried we don't know how many permits we can even give out. You know, we've got you know what I mean, all that stuff. Should we renew this software at $30,000 or whatever it is? For
That's a good question, Wendy.
I mean, if if it's tough to have numbers now, it is impossible without that software.
But what good are the numbers if it turns out we can't tell who's in the village or not? We have that software and we still can't use it to find out if we can enforce what we've got. It doesn't seem to be
So I'll say
understanding.
right now, we have $8,000 in revenue for short-term rentals. We have at least 4,000 more outstanding. That is what's going to cover
We will cover our costs.
the cost of the software currently.
Or we would have that money towards something else.
Or no, without the software, we would not be able to
Enforce the ordinance.
enforce the ordinance. Yeah.
How
So,
about the,
and
how
these
about the
permit
town?
fees, the permit
Wait a
fees,
minute. Wait, I didn't understand that. We can't enforce the ordinance without the software?
We couldn't be able to prove that people had short-term rentals without the software. So these people have paid, and maybe without the software, they still would have paid. We don't know that, but if people know that we can't track them and we can't find out if they have a short-term rental or not, they may not be willing to pay in future years.
so Eric, thank you for pointing out that the income is but it's really a wash, but the income is paying for the expense.
It's a wash right now, but that's only with 11 people signing up. So if we have more people that register, especially if we can track them and reach out to them, then we'll have more revenue.
And the fees are going to be annual,
Yes,
so it repeats. So,
correct.
and the renewal of the software has to be annual.
Yeah, because
Yes.
they're constantly getting new information.
So, okay, I just wanted to get that question out there. Where is it in the budget and how? Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the budget? Oh, we need to vote, or do we need to schedule a meeting for a final vote? Or we want to get more numbers? People want more information?
So can I just make sure I'm correct? So we took away one rifle,
Yeah, so there's no rifles.
so $1,200 there, and then we took away the contingency fund down to $10,000.
Yes.
Has there been any other changes that I have not?
We've left the candy. Not changing parking. Tree fund, we're leaving alone. Because we've got the tree fund and then we've got the village capital reserve tree fund. So tree fund's in two places. It's 5,000 in one spot and it's how much in the other spot?
I think 10,000.
10,000, and it's also 1,700.
Yeah, there's 1,700
Yeah,
too.
1,700 is sort of a separate bucket.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Right.
so we've got $15,000 for trees. That's something we could cut. Does anybody want to cut any of the tree?
What have we paid?
I mean, we use it up every year, certainly.
Yeah, so basically the $10,000 is for the tree warden to make changes out in the community. The $5,000 goes into a capital reserve fund, which I believe we then use when we need to do the spraying every few years against whatever the disease.
Emerald ash.
Yeah.
Or is what it's being used against.
So 5,000 of it is spoken for, 10,000 is,
Well, $5,000 is set aside for future spending, yes.
Okay.
That's every other year.
oh, that's right, okay. So there's $10,000. Does anybody want to reduce the tree?
No.
Okay. Anything else that anybody wants to increase, decrease? What information do we need from Eric or Robert or Chris? To make any other? Do we need any further information?
We're at 12.8 right now, estimated increase.
And where was the town?
The town, if they don't change anything, is gonna vote at a 10.75%. And to their credit, I tried to get them to cut the budget and they refused to, so. I set my budget with a lower tax rate and they decided to invest more in capital reserves, so.
Okay. So we need another meeting we're fine with the changes. We don't anticipate any other changes unless something pops up. So can we vote based on the decisions we've made today, or we need to do a different warning?
I mean, you can vote to move this budget forward. If you want to take a day or two, you're more than welcome to do that as well. We said the 16th was kind of drop dead date. We've used that for the town. The town's town meeting is 2 weeks ahead of the village meeting, so you do have some more time. But the quicker we have this, obviously, the quicker we can pull everything together. So if you wanted to have a meeting early next week, I think that would be okay.
Trustees, what's your preference? Voting on it tonight or sitting on it for a couple days?
I'm okay to vote on it tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too.
I'll vote on it tonight.
Okay. Okay, so I would make, so the number that we're using is 12.8.
What I would say is, how you want,
Are you comfortable with us voting on it? tonight?
yes, yeah. I would say you probably want to vote on the total expense line. So that'll be $1,632,480.90. Actually, hold on. There's some extra money. Let me just, so I'll make this clean. Okay, yeah, so total expenses of $1,632,637.90.
637 and 92 cents.
90 cents.
90.
Yeah.
1,632,000.
$637.90.
Wait. $1,632,000.
$1,632,637.
37.
Dollars.
Cents.
90 cents. Thank you. So, okay, I would make a motion to approve the village budget for a total of $1,632,637,090 to be sent to the voters. Is there a second?
Oh, I guess I'll second that one.
Really, you guys all in favor? Aye.
Left it for me. Thank you.
Did you say aye, Frank?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Oh, you guys are funny.
But can we put that parking meter idea on our
Next agenda.
next agenda?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can start doing some research.
So
too.
that we can raise some revenue
Yes,
pretty
absolutely.
quickly without a lot of
Okay.
risk.
Anything else on the budget, Eric?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Robert and all of the people.
Yes.
Our
Byron.
Byron,
See ya.
Thank you.
Next item is an executive session under one VSA 313A1E to discuss pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're now moving into executive.
Can't believe you guys stuck me with that second. Y'all think you're funny.